Starting from absolute zero means looking at a reality with zero income, navigating the heavy aftermath of severe recent setbacks, and realizing the buffer is completely gone. It is the mechanics of being completely stalled. In physics, the concept of static friction dictates that a resting object requires a disproportionate amount of initial energy just to start moving. At rock bottom, that same friction applies to human behavior, making the prospect of forward progress feel impossibly exhausting. When a life has been leveled, trying to take the very first step triggers intense internal resistance. The brain actively protests burning calories on what looks like an impossibly steep climb. A depleted bank account is an accounting problem, but the inability to take that first step is a state of overwhelming physical and psychological paralysis. The internet usually prescribes a heavy dose of motivational hype to combat this heavy reality. Venting about being tired of being stuck might feel satisfying in the moment, but it does absolutely nothing to alter the mechanics of the situation. It generates zero kinetic energy, and it doesn't pay a single bill. This chart shows exactly why relying on a motivational burst is biologically flawed. You get a sharp, narrow spike in motivation energy, but it abruptly crashes well before it can cross the high, flat baseline of static friction. The human body cannot sustain the pure adrenaline required to move a massive psychological load. Depending on a temporary emotional state to rebuild a life guarantees the individual will remain exactly where they started. The shift happens the moment the excuses are dropped. By pointing a camera at the process and definitively choosing to document the rebuild, a mechanism of accountability clicks into place. Moving forward requires an entirely new psychological framework. It means shrinking your focus down to a highly constrained radius of actions you can directly manipulate, the controllables. Look at the exact, unglamorous actions of day one: submitting 10 job applications, forcing a grueling session at the gym. It is an immediate, physical transfer of pent-up energy into kinetic motion. These specific actions are not chosen because they pay the rent today. They are chosen because their execution requires zero external permission and zero luck. Executing strictly controllable tasks is the only reliable method to generate the initial physical force required to break static friction. Every application submitted and every weight lifted acts as a deliberate unit of applied force, pushing against a static reality. This diagram illustrates the cognitive transition inside the brain. A controllable input triggers a microwin. That microwin directly feeds into a replenished energy capacity node, creating a continuous loop. This specific loop removes the reliance on motivation. The process continues because the energy is generated by the action itself rather than an emotional spark. These micro-wins shift the baseline state. Even on day one, the system is no longer stationary, it is an object in motion. Step 1 focuses on changing the state of matter from static to kinetic, prioritizing physical movement over immediate financial returns. The reality check arrives by day 4 or 5, when the initial defiance and adrenaline of day 1 inevitably evaporate. This drop-off presents an extreme psychological danger. It threatens a creeping paralysis, freezing straight back to absolute zero and a state of static friction. The fading of motivation is a biological certainty built into human neurology. It is not a personal failure, nor a lack of desire. The ultimate survival of the rebuild depends entirely on the system that is waiting to take over the exact moment motivation dies. Discipline operates as that exact system. It is a rigid, mechanical infrastructure built to protect and sustain behavioral momentum. This chart shows how discipline systematically prevents a backward slide. Unlike the crashing spike of motivation, each disciplined action acts as a mechanical ratchet, locking in a new, slightly higher baseline. Making the decision to document every step, every win, and every setback serves as a public method of reinforcing this disciplined infrastructure. Overcoming absolute zero is a collaborative, daily commitment to the deeply unglamorous mechanics of momentum.